Welcome to another amazing testimony. We've got Billy Lincoln with us today, who's got an amazing story to tell, and we always hope that these stories are an inspiration to people, and wherever you are in your life, no matter how bad things are, Jesus can always rescue you from that point. He'll meet you at that point without judgment. It will be with unconditional love. And often people that have got amazing testimonies, that's how they came to know Jesus in the first place. Billy, welcome, and thank you for agreeing to come and chat to us today.
You're most welcome.
Tell me a little bit about your we won't start off from scratch, from you being a baby and all that, but just tell me briefly about your mum and dad. Tell me about your background family-wise.
My dad was an ex-guardsman, Yorkshireman, strict disciplinarian, lovely man. My mum was a soft pushover Londoner.
Mm-hmm.
They met just after the war. My dad had been to Germany, Malaya, etc. My early recollections is a lot of love from my mum, a lot of discipline from my dad. I've got a younger sister that was extremely poorly, and I used to go down to the hospital regularly to visit her. She was in there for months with a thyroid complaint. Mm-hmm. And they used to drop me off at a cinema that showed nothing but cartoons.
Right.
So my earliest recollections of things were, as you know, in cartoons, nobody ever dies, nobody ever gets really hurt, which was how I was brought up, thinking nobody ever really does get hurt,
yeah,
which isn't true.
Mm.
When I was about 10 or 11, I got interviewed by the police for letting pigeons out of a loft, but we both got away with that, well, me and the pigeons.
Mm-hmm.
And that started because I was given attention from somebody, because my parents were so preoccupied with my sister. Mm-hmm. I was getting attention, and I liked getting attention.
Mm.
I was disruptive at school,
yeah,
unsettled, quite uneducated.
And was all this because you felt that your parents were sort of distant from you in some way?
Yes, because of preoccupied with my younger sister,
right,
who was born. It nearly cost me it nearly cost him his wife and daughter, yeah, because of the complications in those days.
Yeah, yeah.
And as a result, it was a matter of, let's, concentrate on her, it'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
He had never been shown love, so didn't know what love was.
Right, yeah, yeah.
And there was me getting attention from the police, so I was getting into more trouble to get that attention.
But you were somehow strangely enjoying that attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that led you on to do sort of commit worse crimes, did it?
Oh yeah. I mean, not the petty crimes. Thieving, shoplifting, criminal damage, assault, robbery, all these sort of things.
And what sort of age were you then when all that started to happen?
I was first locked up at the age of about 13 in a remand home.
Mm-hmm.
At 15 I was sent to a detention centre, and I suppose the most shocking 18 months to 2 years was when I was 16. I was on bail on the condition I stayed at my mum and dad's house. Yeah. Well, being that I had a monument chip on my shoulder, my dad took me to the police station to sign on. And I should have realised there's something wrong there because he was so nice. Mm-hmm. And we got to the police station and he said to the police, right, you can keep him, we don't want him back home. So there I was locked up. Shortly afterwards, it was my 17th birthday. Now that was my birthday. I'd been in prison or locked up over Christmas a couple of times, but that was to do with somebody else. This was my birthday. And what followed was probably the worst 18 months of my life.
He meant that he didn't want you back at all?
Yeah. He just wanted me gone.
Well, that wouldn't have done me much good, would it, really?
No.
What was his reaction to all the trouble? I mean, did he never realise why you were doing these things? Did it never occur to him?
No, he was trying to, what he thought was show me tough love.
Yeah.
Which everybody knows doesn't work.
No, no.
And as a result, I was rebellious.
So you're in this police cell at 17 years of age on your birthday What was going through your head at the time?
Rejection, hatred, abandonment.
Did your mother agree with your dad?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they disowned you in effect?
I did. At the age of 16, I was neglected.
Right.
Put in care, so to speak. I mean, it wasn't even care, it was in prison. And
so what happened when, you know, obviously you came out of prison at some stage. What happened then with your life? I mean, did you reconnect with your parents or?
not straight away. I was in and out of prison for a number of times.
Mm-hmm. And all that time you'd no contact with your parents?
No. It was actually, I was in, many years later, I was in Pentonville prison when I met somebody that lived in the same village as I did, and he told me that I didn't live in his village because the houses weren't there. But by the time he'd gone into prison, they'd built some houses and we'd moved in.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because of that, him writing to his parents, that his parents went to see my parents, and we got speaking again.
So did your dad come to see you at that point? I mean,
no, they sort of like said, okay, you can come home when you get out.
Right.
But this is like a long time later.
Right, right. So how did you live in between times, apart from being in prison?
I was in squats, bedsits, anywhere like that. I moved down to Worthing in West Sussex. Nothing there. I had jobs, had a couple of experiences. Some of the things that had happened to me were painful.
Yeah.
But I look back on it, and as a Christian, nothing I've been through has been wasted to bringing glory to God by talking to others and helping others through their problems.
Right.
And being able to pray for people.
So because you were so young at the time, I mean, you know, those years, 17 onwards, it's sort of your formative years, really, aren't they? So how did you deal with all that? I mean, because you must have felt totally alone. Were you still enjoying the fact that you were getting attention from the police, or?
No, I become very aggressive and violent.
So what was feeding you at the time? Was it anger? Or?
Anger. I was once described as being well balanced because I had a chip on each shoulder.
Right.
And I got very violent, aggressive,
yeah,
and rebellious to all authority.
Right, right.
Any sort of authority, I was out to disrupt.
Yeah, yeah. And what? So I presume you ended up at some point with a long prison sentence, didn't you?
Yeah, I was in Wormwood Scrubs, where the start of where I was gang raped. I tried to kill myself. I couldn't. They locked me up for my own safety and safety of others, deeming that I was not all there. It gave me, I felt like a total failure. So having been a failure and unwanted, and no good at anything, it just put me on a downward spiral. And that's all my life was, in and out of institutions, prisons, and I treated everything as a joke.
Yeah. How long were you in Wormwood Scrubs?
I was in there for 5.5 months.
Yeah.
Before they shipped me off to a Borstal.
Right.
Where I spent the next 18 months. So between the ages of 13 and 29, I spent half of it in one sort of prison, detention centre, remand home or another.
Yeah. With no support from your parents whatsoever?
Hardly any at all.
So what happened when, I mean, obviously when you came out, did you go back to your parents when you got out of prison?
One of the times, yes, but in the meantime, I met a girl, fell in love with the fact that I had a girlfriend, made her pregnant, we got married, had another child, but it didn't work out. I was in love with the relationship, not the person, because I didn't know what love was.
Right, Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, could make perfect sense, yeah. But the attention that you got from that must have given you some sort of boost in it.
It did.
Yeah.
You know, but then when there was trouble, I just went and done something wrong to get myself locked up again because I found it easier to cope with. Rather than face.
You felt safe inside, did you?
Yeah, because I was partly institutionalised by then, having been in there so often. It affected my schooling.
Yeah, it affected everything, your entire life, I would have thought.
Yeah.
And if you just to come back to your sister for a minute, what happened to your sister? Did your sister get well, or?
She's currently, her lungs at the moment are like a crochet blanket. She's got 28% of one lung working. She's lives on the Isle of Wight. She's 16 months younger than me. She's on oxygen. She's never fully recovered from the thyroid, which made, she had the one that made her so thin. She weighed a couple of stone at the age of about 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Which isn't healthy in anyone's, you know.
No.
But we speak occasionally.
Yeah. You know brothers?
No.
No.
Just a younger sister.
So what was the longest prison sentence you did?
I think it was about 18 months in one. So apart from the ball store, I came out, done a few short sentences. I was actually the first person in West Sussex to do community service, the alternative to prison.
Right.
And God had a sense of humour back then, before I knew him, because he had me painting the laundry room of a local convent.
Right.
So I was in the Catholic magazine and interviewed.
Yeah.
And mentioned on a TV programme.
So at what point did things start to change, in as much as, you know, you left that life behind, your encounter with the Lord? How did all that come about?
When my last prison sentence, when I was 29, I was in prison with a friend of mine, and he come up to me one day and he's bounding full of happiness, and he says, "I found Jesus." I said, "Oh right, was he lost?" Which is what you do. You think, oh, he's out for an easy life. And a week before I was due home, I got a Dear John letter from my wife. "Don't bother coming home, I've got somebody else." And he said, "Right, you're going to stay at my house when you come out." Because we lived in the same area. And he picked me up from prison he came out on the Wednesday, he picked me up on the Friday, I went to his house and stayed there. I felt duty bound to go to his church. Went in there. Now I've been to church nearly every Sunday when I was in prison, because it's an extra hour out your cell.
Right.
And it's like the chaplain stands there, "Jesus died for you, a sinner," which actually doesn't do anything.
No.
We did have one chaplain who challenged us to talk about anything. So we challenged him to talk about the pill. And he came back and talked about the 2 tablets that Moses was given. And he's the only chaplain that we could actually relate to.
Yeah.
I walked into this church and I've never seen anything like it. Everyone was standing there and they had their hands up in the air and they were all happy and I'm thinking, what a bunch of nutters, and walked out. Well, as I was still staying at my mate's sofa, I went back the following Sunday and I thought, well, it's not too bad. And this dear lady called Dorothy, she's probably in her 90s now, came up to me and said, "Do you know who Jesus is?" I said, "What do you mean is?" "He died for me when I was a sinner." I said, "No, he's risen. He died on the cross, and all the peace, the joy, the health, the happiness that you wanted, you can find in Jesus." And I said, "Oh yeah, right, that easy. All you've got to do is give your life to him." And I thought, yeah, nothing's that easy. So a couple of days later, I'm walking down the road, looking around, making sure nobody could see me, because I look pretty silly talking to myself in a public street. "Okay, God, if you're real, I've got to give my life to you. You can have it. Do what you like." And suddenly, for the first time in my life, I laughed on the inside. And something had changed. I went back to my friend's house and he said, "There's a job going." Got this job, working evenings, loading fruit and veg lorries. I was only there a couple of days and someone said, oh, there's a bedsit next to me coming up. And I got the bedsit. And then the road opposite was a taxi office which wanted a morning radio operator. So I ended up with 2 little part-time jobs.
All organised, didn't he?
Yeah, but I'm thinking, oh, this is all coincidence. I didn't know about God incidences then. And then I went on a Bible study course that normally takes 45 minutes. Well, me and the chap who was doing it, we'd be there for like an hour and a half. He's an ex-tank commander, name of John.
Yeah.
And he said, whatever God tells you to do, just obey. Now, I've known all my life what obedience was, because I've been in rebellion of it. So if God told me to do something, I would do it. Somebody gave me a Bible and told me to look up Ephesians. So there I am looking under EF, and I've eventually found it because of my dedication. Ephesians 4:28 said the man who used to rob must stop robbing and get himself a job, work with his own hands, and help the poor. Well, I didn't worry about that last bit so much. It's okay, if I've got to stop robbing, I'll stop robbing and start working properly, which I did. And as a result, things changed. My wife then said, I want you to have the house and children, I'm going off with my boyfriend. So I had to give up my jobs and my bedsit, go back and become a single parent for months on end.
How old were your kids at the time?
18 months and 4.5. So the first day for her in the big school, I went to go there and get her into school. Now we're talking 20, 36, 30 plus years ago.
Yeah.
34 years ago. When you see a chap at the school, then I was the only male picking up the children. It was all mums. Unlike today where it's mixed, more mixed. And there was only one lady who used to come and speak to us from our church. And they're such a lovely couple. And it was them that helped me.
Yeah.
And I was baptised just after I became a Christian, within a month. And although I've made mistakes, I've done things wrong, I've messed up a few times, God is a God of families. And he had an opportunity for me and my dad to talk.
Yeah.
And he restored that relationship.
Brilliant, yeah.
And although my father's now passed away, we were able to pray with him in hospital. And he gave his life to the Lord literally on his deathbed.
That's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah.
Knowing that, but the fact that he's healed him,
yeah,
it made such a difference.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of your children, did it come as a shock to you that your wife wanted you to have the kids? And I mean, that was a big thing to do, wasn't it? Really?
Yes, but then whatever, I always threw the whole of me into whatever I did, whether it was right or wrong, whether it lasted any time or not.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just got on with it.
Yeah. Did your wife ever come back for the kids? Or?
I took her back, but she messed around again. And I took her back and she messed around again, and after the third time I said, I can't handle this. And I was walking back from seeing the children one day, walking back, and I passed the parish church, and I was feeling really angry, really annoyed, really bitter.
Yeah.
And I saw a sign that says third Sunday of the month, evening prayer service. I said, right, Lord, I better get down here this evening to get some prayer. Forgetting what month we were in, I walked in and it's a Christmas carol service.
Right.
And the message, as though it could have actually been spoken to me. And as I walking up the road, skipping up the road home to my parents at the time where I was staying, it was like the Lord was saying to me, don't come to me in dirgeful, mournful prayer, come to me rejoicing and praising him in all things. And I thought, yeah, that has an impact.
Absolutely, yeah. So when you became a Christian then, it happened very quickly, didn't it, really?
Oh, yeah.
And you had no doubts whatsoever. I mean, how difficult was it to leave your past behind? Because, I mean, all these things that you went through of rejection and obviously being in prison and being in trouble and all that business, was it difficult to leave all that behind, or what? Was there a big adjustment period?
No, it was just like...
It was God washed it all away.
Just washed it all away. It took a few years after I became a Christian to bring it up that what happened to me in Wormwood Scrubs, and I shared it with somebody. Then I went in church one day and the Lord just healed me and made me feel totally first class, clean. It wasn't my fault, released from all the guilt, and really done some more work on me.
Right.
And the things he's done for me are just phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So what, did your children become Christians?
No, unfortunately, that they've been to church, but they're leaving their own lives, but they're in God's hands.
Absolutely, yeah. And what, so at some point you remarried, did you?
I remarried. I was on my own over 11 years, and I met a young lady I was working with who I didn't like. I thought she was a snob.
A lot of marriages start off like that, don't they?
And she was in a very abusive, wasteful relationship. And I said to her, if ever you want to chat, give us a ring. The next day she phoned up and she said, did you mean what you said? And I thought, well, no, but I said it, so I'll say yes.
You're just being polite.
So we chatted, and I said, whatever decision you make about you and your partner, and you want to finish it, stick with it. Don't let him bully you back into it, because what happens is that you then become a puppet.
Absolutely.
It's better to get hurt briefly now than hurt.
Absolutely.
And she threw him out, got rid of him. I went round there, I said, who's the cars registered to? And she said, well, me. I said, well, get him, he's got the cars, send them the documents off, register to him at his address. He's got the cars, do so. On the Sunday night, this was on the Friday, on the Sunday night, she got a visit from the police. We've arrested your boyfriend for drunk driving while disqualified, and having an accident. The cars are registered in your name. She said, no, they're not. They're registered in his name. And it was because I had had a word from God about doing that, she didn't get into trouble.
No, that's fantastic.
And so she started coming to church. She heard my testimony. We were working together. She went to church one Sunday I wasn't working. The same lady, Dorothy, met her, talked to her. She gave her life to the Lord Jesus on a grubby railway station north of Byrne, where we were working as security guards. Because they say that poachers make the best gamekeepers, and I ended up as a security guard. And that's how we met. I started courting in November, proposed on Christmas Day. I left a message on the answer phone, who said romance is dead. And then we just carried on and got married on March 1st, and that's 18 years this year.
Isn't it fantastic how God completely changed your life?
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
The thing is with things like that is that you've got to submit to God's will. I gave my life to God and said, do whatever you like with it, I don't want it. And he's given me back as though I'd been a Christian from the minute I was born.
It's as though the past never happened, really.
Yeah. He's wiped it. It's like the teacher wiping the blackboard. It's not there.
Yeah. What was the reaction of people that knew you? Because, you know, there's a saying, isn't there, the leopard never changes its spots. Very few people believe that people can change to that extent. What you know, people that you regarded as friends, etc., what reaction did you get from them? or indeed from your parents, really, your family, you know.
I mean, my dad used to say the best three things to ever happen to me were the church and June, my second wife. A couple of people who knew me came to the church and said, I remember him. He was full of anger. He was big. He was, wow. I can see how God's changed him. I was at a healing conference, and a social worker who dealt with us many, many years ago when we first met said, as soon as I saw you in your eyes, I knew there was something different about you, because they could see. People could see the difference. And I just stopped hanging around some of those old friends and thought, I don't need them. But I didn't have a lot of friends because I was always been a loner. But it was, so I just got on with my own thing with just me and God.
You just got on with it?
Yeah. And because of my criminal convictions, it's hard to get jobs. But I got a job working nights in a petrol station because the assistant manager employed me. Said, oh, you've been done for assault? Yes. Oh, well, you won't stand any trouble then. So I got the job.
Well, that's a...
And I was able to put on my praise tapes and read the Bible and get to know God in a real personal, powerful way as a new Christian and have tremendous times of fellowship with him. Now, that was over 30 years ago, 31 years ago. And when I think back over the last 30 years what's happened, and then over the last 20 years, I can see countless times that God's not only saved my life more than once physically, how he's healed, how he's used me, so much. It's just like, if I was to start praising and thanking God now for everything, I'd be here for the next 3 years plus. You know, he's a God that loves. He's a God of families. In the Bible there's a verse that says you've got to love me more than your family and stuff like that. It doesn't say neglect them. No. It doesn't say leave them and insult them. It's a matter of loving him more. And that's how it is. Yeah.
It's a fantastic story. I mean, because, you know, I often say this, that there are people watching this that are probably in a similar place to yourself, the way you were at one time. What would you say to those people?
Someone's asked me that once before and said, and I told them that if it turns out that at the end of the day it's all a lie, and there is no God and there is no Jesus and everything, I will still live the life I've led as a Christian because it's a far better life to live now than before. And the only way you're going to find that peace, that love, that joy and that healing is by the blood that Jesus shed and the crucifixion that he went through to take away our sins and bridge that gap between God's holiness and our sin.
Do you ever go into prisons and speak to prisoners? Or?
I have done, and I'm arranging to go into Thorncroft this year.
Right, yeah. It's you said something right at the beginning of the interview, basis of when it all started, that you didn't feel loved, that it was your way of hitting back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure I think that's the basis of so many people's problems, isn't it?
Oh,
really?
Definitely.
Yeah. Billy, you mentioned that your dad gave his life to the Lord on his deathbed.
Yeah.
What happened to your mum? What was the situation there?
My mum's still got lots of hurt, especially from her childhood, and finds it very, very difficult to forgive. She experienced things during and up before the war that's left scars, and she's struggling to cope with it. It's in God's hands whether, you know, we pray for her, but when we've actually prayed with her, there's been a change. But it's one step forward, 2 steps backwards quite often.
What do you do now for a job, or what did you do subsequently? I know you worked in a petrol station.
I worked in a petrol station. I've done a few odd jobs. I was a lollipop man for a while. I then was coordinator for Wrexham Street Pastors until ill health got the better of me.
Right.
I'm registered disabled now because of an accident with my knee. I've got a number of health issues. I've been prayed for, but the Lord keeps telling me that the reason I'm not healed is because I will go back to work and not be free to do the things I do at the moment.
Right.
Because at the moment I'm actually working with ex-offenders,
Yeah.
3 ex-offenders. I'm involved with Wrexham Street Pastors. We've started up the Wrexham, well, my wife has started up the Wrexham prayer group for prison fellowship, ready for the new prison in 2 years. Little things like that, but then I'm not able to do everything I want to because, like today I'm fine, but tomorrow I could be laid up all day.
Yeah, it's a day-to-day thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
The question I was going to ask you was, were you ever able to tell your mum why things went wrong? Were you ever able to tell her that you didn't feel loved at the time and rejected?
Yeah, but she didn't. She doesn't want to hear it.
No.
She doesn't want to hear it at all. She knows that me and my dad made our peace and got things sorted out, but she just wants to block it all out. As far as she's concerned, it's in the past. She doesn't want to bring anything from the past up
anymore. Yeah. Some things are very hard to face up to, aren't they? Really,
oh,
I suppose. Yeah. I think you know, I've only been actually into a prison once, to you know, and spoke to prisoners in there. I think you would immensely inspire a lot of those people, and it's odd, but really, because you know, when you go in places like that, you tend to sort of think you're going to meet horrible people, but it just was. You know, I found that most of the guys I met were really nice people.
Oh yeah, they've just gone through a bad period or just a little blip. Sometimes it is not their fault.
Exactly. Yeah.
Circumstances, the way they've been brought up.
Yeah. Well, that's what you said before about not feeling loved. That's exactly what went through my mind with some of these guys that I met. You know.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be brilliant. Tell me something. So you live in the Wrexham area now. How long have you lived in Wrexham?
We've been up here 17 years.
Yeah.
We felt a calling on our lives to move from Sussex to North Wales.
Right.
We, just the wife and I, within a month of moving up here, well, we put the house on the market. It fell through a number of times. The wife came up for a number of interviews. They never got past the second interview. We said, that's it. She said, I'm 40, too old to have children, we're going to move up. Because she spent a year on IVF, it cost her a marriage and a relationship before we met. We'd moved up to North Wales, living in a caravan, and within a month, she had a job in Liverpool as temping as an accountant. I bought a snack van, trading on the A55.
Yeah.
We got a house that we rented until about 4 years ago, and she fell pregnant. But we didn't know she fell pregnant until about 3 months later when she started feeling it. And it was just how God had given us everything as though from the start. And within a week of us moving up, well actually the day we moved up, our solicitor contacted to say, we've got a cash buyer, we're on our way round for you to sign the papers, and it was all completed within a week.
Right.
So saying within that first month so many things happened, and we've now got a little boy who's nearly 16, young lad now. June has just finished a Bachelor of Science with honours degree in Animal Sciences. She's doing a PGC at university. We've run our own animal business.
Yeah.
Where we do exotic animal encounters and parties.
Yeah.
Which we are restarting this summer in conjunction with the pet shop. So we're using their animals. And I've been to Sri Lanka, I've been to the Philippines a couple of times, helping children, and I've got a real heart for children and babies. The wife's got a real heart for young mums, single mums. and things like that. So we do what we can to help.
Yeah, yeah. Fantastic. Well, listen, it's your story is amazing, and I'm sure that people listening to this will have enjoyed it, because it's again another example, isn't it, of how Jesus can completely shift your life from one place to another without effort. It's unbelievable. I mean, you know, when you were going through all these things in the dark days, and who would have convinced you that you'd have ended up where you were? Nobody, would they?
No. If Dorothy had said to me, give your life to Jesus, oh, and by the way, in 20 years' time you'll be doing it, I would have probably run a mile.
Mm-hmm.
But because of who Jesus is, and the fact that he loves us, God loves me so much that his son died for me to bring in a relationship with a father that loves me unconditionally. And there's, in the Bible, the second to last book of what they call the New Testament, there's a verse in Jude 24, it says, to him who is able to present you faultless and full of joy. So to be faultless, blameless, cleaned, washed and full of joy is contagious.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's the same as somebody who finds a cure for cancer and keeps it to themselves. You can't do it.
No.
You can't help but love people. Jesus used to love having dinners, and he was at the home of Simon the Pharisee when a lady came in and anointed his feet with her tears and dried them with her hair. And Jesus said, those who've been forgiven a lot, love a lot. And knowing how much I've been forgiven, not forgotten, forgiven, and being forgiven and allowed myself to forgive myself, and to forgive others, and to know that I'm forgiven, can only transform into love.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the more you can forgive, the more love. And there's some people say, oh, it's not that easy. It is that easy. Jesus died for you so that you could be brought into a decent human relationship with a loving, living God. And it's just fantastic to know him.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. That's an incredible story.
You're welcome.
Thanks. God bless you. God bless you. Well, that was amazing, I'm sure you'll agree. And one wants to get in contact with Billy, you can do so through the Task Jesus website, which is taskjesus.co.uk. Thank you very much indeed for watching. God bless.